Hi, Palco.
Warm welcome to everyone. It's really nice to have you. First of all, I would like to ask if my co-host Sylvie is here. I don't see her for the moment. Maybe we will wait a few more seconds so that she arrives as well, if that's fine for everyone. Until then, I would like to let you know that the microphones your microphones are muted by default. So please don't be surprised if you are uh, trying to say something and no one reacts. That's probably because you're muted. But we will say more about the technical details later on. Sylvie, here you are.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for being late. I had some technical issues. Where were you, Bertie?
Nothing. I really just started. But now the word is on to you.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. As I see, we are a nice number of participants present. Today, we have a special Zoom meeting because not only the members of Sofia Network for Eastern Europe are joining, but also the friends and participants of Economy of Communions. And here I greet also our followers on YouTube channel and everybody who is directly connecting on Zoom.
And of course, we also greet with a warm welcome our distinguished guest and speaker of today, Professor Luigino Bruni. Professor Bruni is an Italian economist and a historian of economic thought with a special interest in philosophy and theology. He's also an important person in the economy of communion and in the civil economy. He is full professor of the political economy at LUMSA. Together with Stefano Zamagni, he is the promoter and co-founder of the School of Civil Economy. And he is the visiting professor at the Sofia University Institute of Loppiano. Before I ask him to give his presentation, now we would also like to present the Sofia Network for Eastern Europe. Sylvie, can you say a few words about this network?
Yes, the Sofia Network Eastern Europe was initiated by students, professors, and the related friends of the Sofia University Institute. It was our aim to promote and disseminate the typical way of thinking and acting of Sofia, based on collaboration and dialogue. With the Sofia Network, we want to realize different platforms of thinking, acting, and sharing with online workshops, regional meetings, and summer schools. These are our future plans. As a first step, in January this year, we launched a series of online workshops on Zoom. And this event is our last Zoom workshop or Zoom webinar before the summer holidays. So about the technical details of our today meeting, we would like to ask you to mute your microphones, which I think you already did. And Bertie, what we...
Yeah, that was the mainly important part, which I already alluded to at the beginning. So you are muted by default. If you wish to say something, you have a number of options. You can, if you open the participants window, you can raise your hand virtually, or you might as well write on the chat if you wish to intervene. So these are the ways to to let us moderators know that you wish to say something, and we will call you by name. As for the schedule of this evening, the next step is that we will listen to the lecture of Professor Bruni. Afterwards, there will be a few prepared questions. So we will call those who have already prepared their questions or make their interventions. And after that, we will have an open discussion. That's the part where you can contribute by raising your hand or letting us know in the chat. As you know, as Sylvia already said, this is being streamed on YouTube. If you wish to intervene, please keep your contribution within 3 minutes. And now, without further ado, I give the word to Professor Bruni and ask him to give his presentation about the economy after COVID-19. Professor. Please unmute yourself.
Unmute. Okay. Thank you very much for your invitation to Sofia Eastern Europe Network. Thank you very much also Palco, Todd. We are long time good friend from since 20 years, and I'm very happy to have the chance to give this contribution to your network. I also see some friends, Steve, Annette, Kuhn, Meta, other people I'm working with. I'm happy to see your names, your faces here. And okay, I will try to say something about the topic of this conversation. It is a very huge, complex, and not easy topic, because we are still in the pandemic. Today, there was more than 3,000 dead victims in Brazil in one day. Chile is in a mess. United States in the south is still a very difficult time. We are not out from this pandemic. Then, as we know in social sciences, it's very difficult to write, to have a theory of a phenomenon as far as we are within the phenomenon, because the scientific distance from the phenomenon is very important. It's essential for doing something serious, and not just to be too much influenced by the sentiments, the emotions. That is not good in general when you do science, or you do scientific or cultural work. But I will try to say something, of course, provisional, something transitory, something work in progress, because we started in Italy at the end of February. As you may know, Italy was the first country in Europe to be really strongly affected by the COVID-19. We were totally unprepared. We were totally unequipped to face to manage this huge, tremendous problem. We were totally surprised by the strength, the power of what was going on. Everybody in Italy was totally astonished by what was going on in Lombardy and Milan. And in a few days, the first days, we were trying to trace the contact of this patient one, this 37 man that was the first sick in Milan. And for 2 days, we were trying to understand the contact he had in the family, in the surrounding area. In 3 days, hundreds of people were affected in an explosion. Everybody was very, very difficult moment. We were very scared, very, and secure a very, I think it's not easy to understand now what was going on for many people was really the experience of the possibility to die, because when you don't know what is going on, people are affected. In fact, also many people in Italy started to follow the mass, the mass in television, the attendance at spiritual broadcast was 5 or 6 times more than before COVID. People were very scared. And then I think this fear, this is an important, probably the most important element of what was going on in these 2 or 3 months. But what is possible to say from an economic point of view? I have just a few minutes. I will try to go to the point directly without other introductory words. First, I listed 5 elements, 5 lessons from this crisis, from an economic point of view, from an economy of communion point of view, from an economic civil economy point of view, because the economies are many in society. As you know, there are companies, there are sectors of the economy that got richer, wealthier after this pandemic. Someone is saying, joking, that the virus was invented by Zoom, because for the millions or billions they got after the pandemic. Amazon, all the you say new economy, the internet economy. Some sectors were not so badly affected by this economy. There are people that now are richer than before. For instance, myself, I'm a public employee. I have my salary. I had my salary as usual. I spent less than usual because I work in Rome usually. I didn't spend any money for gasoline, for highway. Then I saved almost 1,000 euro per month. Then I have the duty to share also with other people with some problems what I got more. I think this cross subsidiation among people must be taken into consideration, because if we just ask to the state to subsidize sectors without also practicing fraternity among people with more money than before, with people with less money than before, that is also communion. And I think there is a sort of moral duty to do more, to help someone if you had some advantages from this COVID crisis. Then what the lessons from the pandemic? First, the importance of relational goods. This strange expression, relational goods. Good is also, relationships are good, are economic good. We wrote, Benedetto Gui, other economists, we wrote about relational goods since 30 years. But this COVID crisis explained to us what actually is a relational goods, how much important they are, why people go in normal times to buy now the bread, after 2 hours the milk, and then the fruit. Why? Because people, when go to shopping, they don't like just shopping. They don't buy just commodities. They buy also relationships. And when we were locked down in our house without the possibility to meet friends, to meet relatives, to meet colleagues, we realized immediately how important relationships are, even in economics. How important are the possibility to meet the other people face to face and not just by Zoom. And then we also realized how important are presence, relationships, bodily relationships in presence. When you are a young boy or girl, a kid, you need maybe some help for your school, for your schooling, for your education. The education at distance, the online classes were more or less good for skillful students, for good students, but were terrible for students with problems. The inequality of our children will grow after COVID, because children with some problems, or children with a family with some problems, without a mom or daddy with them to help them for online classes, these children will be worst after COVID. Then inequality is an important issue in this crisis. And then also we realized that for some meetings it's possible to organize a Zoom conference for ordinary meetings, for ordinary discussion, for ordinary problems. But if you want to organize a strategic meeting, if you want to solve a complex problem, Zoom is not enough. Then after these 3 months of crisis, we realized that for something it's not necessary to go to work. Maybe we can also learn to go not every day to office, because if you would like to do something important with your colleagues, Zoom is not enough. I think this is one lesson from the COVID. Second, we learned the importance of, we realized which kind of work, which kind of labors, which kind of job are very essential in society. In Italy, I don't know, in Hungary, but probably will be something similar, or in other countries, it was possible to survive in lockdown without lawyers, without bankers, without professors, without economists, but we will die without people at cashier in the supermarket, without carriers bringing us food at home, without cleaners in the street, without cleaners in the hospital. Then the intelligence of ants showed itself to be more important than the intelligence of intellectuals. Then there was a sort of emergence of the importance of ants, the importance of workers, humble workers, that in ordinary life are not considered to be very important. They are not paid very much with respect to professors. And we realized that without this kind of people, it would be impossible to survive. And then another lesson that we discovered really the true nature of market, the true nature of economics, the true nature of economy. Economy is a network of reciprocal love. It's not romantic, but market is the most important invention in history of humanity for helping one another. That is market, more than egoism or self-interest or incentives, or yes, everything is there. But during this crisis, we realized that the most important, the deepest nature of market is reciprocity. Is people helping one another by work. Work is the language we use for communicating and for saying beautiful words one another. We knew that before, but now we know better. Then another lesson that we discovered, or we rediscovered, the importance of women. Women were very much overwhelmed, also over-exploited, I would say, during this lockdown. Because in particular, women with children, women working, because the smart working at home is possible, but when you have children with online classes around, you have to prepare something for your family, you have to work, you have to look after your children. The burden, the stress of women was very great, was very high. You have to know that, because we are all tired after these months, but women are more than men. Then children, another lesson from the crisis. Children were very good, at least in Italy. Children were very quiet at home. They weren't complain very much. We were very much surprised and happy with our children, because they were very quiet and very good in their room at home. Because before starting the crisis, we thought, it's impossible for children to be at home for 2 months without playing with the other children and so on. Yes, this is true, but there is always a but. But our children were very good at home because they were locked down before the crisis, because our children were already too much at home playing with smartphones, with the computers and so on. Our children were already too much alone, even before the crisis. Then now it's important to help our children to go outside, because it will be much more difficult now than before, because most parents, they gave up the battle to fight every day with the children. Give up, don't play too much with your smartphone, don't do that. Because during this crisis, it was impossible to battle this fight, to fight this battle, because the children then now is more difficult to help our children to social life, to community life, to go outside, because these 2 or 3 months were very important from that point of view. And finally, we learned the importance of welfare state, of public hospital, public insurance, public health, because countries with a strong public sector, look at Germany, countries with a strong public sector were much more effective in facing this crisis. Countries with too much market economy, in terms of privatization of everything, of health, of security, and so on, were weaker. Then welfare state is a sort of insurance, public insurance. Then we pay something in ordinary times, like with car, with the houses, where we pay something for being stronger when there is a strong crisis, a severe crisis. And then after this crisis, we have to rethink seriously the relationship between private and public sector, the importance of the state, the importance of politics. I don't know in Hungary, but in Italy, all Italian people were rediscovering the importance of government, the importance of the prime minister, the importance of to have someone that in moment of crisis can help the people, the country, the nation, to also in symbolic terms. And then economy after this crisis can be different, can be different in relational goods, can be different in the role of women, can be different in the role of face-to-face meetings with respect to online meetings, but can also be different in our way of looking at politics, our way of looking at market and at the public sector, the public health, the public security. That they are very important public good that were a bit misregarded before. And then I conclude, I don't know if we are enough intelligent for learning enough from that crisis, because people are very good in forgetting everything very soon, because we don't like to remember suffering. But if we are enough intelligent, we must learn something from this crisis. Something for the economy, something from the welfare state, and something for in relationships, in the importance of relational goods, the importance of relationships. Thank you. My time is over.
Thank you very much, Professor Bruni. It was very punctual. And now we have already some questions. I would like to ask Szilárd if you would ask your ones. Szilárd?
Hello everybody, my name is Szilárd Nagy. I don't know if you hear me well or is it okay how you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, not perfectly, but more or less.
Try to speak up, Szilárd.
Okay. Okay, I can speak up a little bit. So, first of all, thank you, Luigino. Sorry, how?
Tell you who you are. What do you do?
Yes, my name is Szilárd Nagy, and I am also making part of the Focolare movement. I am Jan, and I am an economist also. Actually, today was my first working day in a new company, and I found that job after the virus, right after this, because in Hungary it was more shorter, and I was very lucky. Yes,
we are very lucky, but we are not very lucky in understanding you, because it's not easy. If you speak maybe closer.
Okay, I can get closer. And I am also interested in the economy of Francesco. I know that now in this presentation we did not hear much about it, but this will be a huge event in November, which is organized by the Economy of Communion and many other organizations. And Pope Francis will be present there also. And I think that that event will be very huge and important, and there will be nice topics coming up. And my question is actually related to economy of Francesco, because I think that many new things had happened since the virus started. For example, dolphins came again to Venice, and home office is now a very natural thing. So my question is, what do you think, Luigino, if all these positive effects will help the economy of Francesco to make understand the initiatives which will happen after the event?
Yes. Thank you, Szilárd. Szilárd is a beautiful name. I don't know which is the Italian correspondent, but anyway, it will be.
It would be Constantine.
Costantino?
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite different, but okay, Szilárd, Constantine. But it's a mystery. Hi, Anna Sobiekska. Ciao. Also, Ferenc is here. Ciao, all my old friends. And no, this is a good question. We will conclude with something on economy, Francesco. But I just tell you something now. Let's imagine, Szilard, that we were done the economy of Francesco in March as supposed originally. Our event was totally obsolete because the crisis will be a sort of tsunami, that all our ideas, all our proposal was totally old in the day after the conclusion of the economy of Francesco. Then providentially, I would say, the crisis, the COVID started exactly 1 month before the economy of Francesco. Was it not easy at all for me, being the responsible together with the Pope and I, being the scientific responsible of the event, to make a decision where was still possible. It was a bit uncertain too, because at the end of February it was not still so clear the tendency of the pandemic, but we decided all together that probably in the right way, that the right choice was to postpone. We asked the Pope, and the Pope was very important, because it was very nice, because the Pope said, okay, don't withdraw, don't cancel the event, but postpone the event to November. So that was the first success, because in another circumstances, the Pope would also say, okay, it's impossible, I'm old, I'm an old man. No, he said, okay, I like this event, please move the event to November. But if the pandemic would have started 1 month later, probably we were in the condition to organize the event, and the world would be another one. Everything was different. Our Congress on the economy of Francesco was totally obsolete. And then we are convinced that there is more need on economy of Francesco now than before, because the issue of equality, the issue of poverty, the issue of environment, the issue of inequality, and so communion are much more effective, are much more urgent now than before. And then we are working now for including the pandemic within our villages, within our issues. But I think our perception, our conviction is we need more a new economy now than before pandemic. And then you young people are all invited, the ones selected, also the new ones, because we don't know if in November would be possible to be in 2000 there, but we will do anyway the event in November. We will try to organize the partially in presence. Maybe if for some countries it would be not possible to fly to Rome, we will work in using the platform, Zoom and so on. But you are all invited to join in, to come to Assisi. Tomorrow morning I go to Assisi for a meeting with the committee, and we are very much convinced that there is more need now on the economy of Francesco than ever. Grazie, Szilard.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
And thanks to you, Professor, as well. We have 2 more prepared questions before handing the word to everyone who wishes to intervene. And one is coming from the coordinator team in Hungary, most specifically from Palko. Palko, would you care to ask your question to the professor?
Yes. Luigino, it was very interesting. You say the world can be different. There are new insights after coronavirus in economists, social analysts, politicians, and so on. But reading some anthropologists, they affirm that real changes in the world occur when there are compulsions, but there are coercive forces that don't allow us to return to the old wheel. That means change in the world depends not only, or not forced, first of all, on the discretion of the agents. My question is whether COVID-19 has a coercive force. I don't know if it is clear. Recently,
Yes, it's clear. No, it's clear. It's clear.
I wanted to greet Rika Semerpini among us. She was the guest, our expert last time, and she spoke on international relations, and she affirms the same thing. Now there is a new world order with the US, China, and so on, Europe, and the world needs collaboration. That is the only way to escape from certain catastrophes. That is my question. I return to my question.
Yes.
Okay, we are all people who have ideals. We want to realize brotherhood on the global level, collaboration, and so on. We are working. Do you see any changes in this sense? That,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
But yes, I was. Thank you, Palco. Okay. According to some anthropologists or sociologists, for huge important changes, you need coercion, you need catastrophe, tsunami, and so on. But maybe can be true because human beings are also able to change when there are some wars. Just think about that. Italy and many countries in Europe wrote their constitutions after the Second World War, after the fascism, after the Nazi, because it was so huge suffering that they said never more. We have to do something new. Then it's possible. Maybe you can. It's also possible that that people will go back exactly to the world as it was before. We have no guarantee up to now if really the world will change or not. But what we can say now that in Europe is going on something important now. For the first time in the last, maybe for the constitution, for the creation of European Union, there was more solidarity among countries, not just competition, or not just finance, or not just economy, but something that we can call solidarity. We were very much impressed then during the COVID, some of our sick people were transported to Germany. 100 people with a helicopter. They went to the therapy, intensive therapy in Germany, because in Italy they were dying because there was not enough room in the hospital. And we were even impressed in Italy to see doctors coming from China, coming from Cuba, coming from Albania. Albania was beautiful discourse speech of the Prime Minister. Said we were in the past decades, in the 90s, where Albania was living a terrible moment. Thousands and thousands of people from Albania were welcomed to Italians, and now we feel the need to help Italy. No? They went to Italy with doctors, with nurses, and so on. And then I don't like the military language to call is a war, is a new war, no, or maybe task force. There is a task force for everything. No, because this is not a war. Because war divided people. This virus united people. Of course, is not enough for a united world, because we are all in the same boat. This is true, but but some people with a lot of money were bought, how do you say, bought maybe a bit more comfort, with more comfort than people living in the flat with the 40 square meter at the center of Milan with 3 children. Then the way of living the lockdown were not easy, or were not the same for the people. But I think something interesting is still going on. Now just to conclude, I'm very impressed by the fact that Germany and France were proposing this recovery fund with more than 500 billions of euro for helping the countries with more problems like Italy, Spain, and so on. I think it's the first time ever that Europe is trying to use another language, another reasoning. And I think is yet something new, in my opinion.
Thank you. We have a question from Hannah from Croatia. I cannot spell your name. Sorry, Hannah.
No problems. Hannah is fine. So hi everyone, I'm Hannah. My last name is Marčetić, so hence the difficulty in pronouncing it. I'm originally from Croatia. I'm currently pursuing a PhD degree in Library and Information Studies in Borås in Sweden. And maybe some of you know that the approach to COVID-19 has been widely different in Sweden, and our experience is not the same. We haven't had quarantine in the extent that it was in the rest of the Europe. The number of deaths has been rising, and it is a large country with not a big amount of people living in it. So definitely Sweden has taken a little bit of a different stance, and maybe this has influenced some of my perceptions of what has been happening in the world. Now, I am not an economist, but I am interested in social media and critical information studies, and hence I am interested in how big corporations, how they run their businesses. So I have some interest in economy, I guess. And my question, and it's maybe even more of a comment and an invitation for debate, but specifically directed to Luigino Bruni because of his interesting position of being an economist and also part of the Focolare movement, which I myself am as well. So maybe I should try to read this just so I don't overstep my time. Palko, what do you think? So I have been following in the social media the invitations for unionizing and bettering the work rights of people working in big corporations such as Amazon. And I believe that Luigino Bruni has touched upon a little bit upon how some of the big global corporations have managed to make even more money and are flocking to digital devices has actually generated a lot more business for global players who are already the most, just to put it plain and simple, the richest people in the world and businesses in the world. And as it usually goes, this inequality rests on the work of people who don't get their equal share, their rights treated fair. And I wonder, what do you think, Luigino? How should we position ourselves with this environment where more and more people work in conditions that are exploitative?
Yes, thank you, Anna. But as you know, the Pope, because I'm also belong to the task force of the Vatican for this COVID in the economic sector of this task force. And the Pope asked the task force, this committee, to work, to study, and to propose something about this idea of universal income or basic income for. Why? Because the Pope realized that if you think about Brazil now means now, today, if half of the population in some region of Brazil live in street informal sector, selling small commodity stuff in an informal way, how lockdown would be possible? Because if you lock down, you die, because there is nothing to eat for you and for your family. And then the Pope said, if we don't imagine a sort of basic income for everybody to survive, lockdown is impossible. The infection will grow, by the way, because people. Well, and then we have to imagine, yes, this catastrophe of a pandemic can help us to imagine something new, not just for the pandemic, but forever. Maybe to imagine that to find in somehow, because in the world there is a lot of wealth in the finance, in the multinationals, in the state, to find somehow some money for creating a sort of citizen income, but not just in Europe, but all over the world. That is very, very demanding, very challenging. I mean, there is a lot of problems, as we know, a lot of problems in terms of opportunity cost, in terms of job creation, in terms of dignity, in terms, as we know very well. But for the first time ever, I know that in some important committee, this idea of a universal basic income is taken seriously. Because before it was considered something very stupid or is impossible. But now, then we have to imagine something new, and that is not directly linked to the pandemic, because this debate about universal income was previous to the pandemic. But this shock can help us to accelerating some debate, some discussion about something that's so important. And thank you. I think is an issue, is an important issue, and this crisis can help us to accelerate the process. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you for your answer. What do you say if is it okay if I just say a few more remarks now that I've managed to gather my thoughts?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, Bertalan is our boss.
You have my blessing. Please go ahead.
Awesome. So I have heard about a study in Finland about universal income, and from what I have heard, it is now scientifically proven that people are more prone to finding jobs, more mentally healthy, and so on, and all of these benefits that come with universal income. So I'm very happy to hear that Pope is behind this idea as well. Now, when you have had your introduction, what struck me a little bit was the importance of women labor that you mentioned. And I think minorities labor in this pandemic is something that has come out as important all around. And what I believe has come out as well is also how not progressive we are in some ways where we think we are, and how much we still rely on women to take on the majority of house labor, of labor at home. And one of the interesting data that I have found was that the amount of articles written in social distancing period written by men has increased and written by women has decreased. So this was a very interesting point for me, and I just wanted to add that to your initial remarks. I have also found some news that were also disheartening in regard with what you were just saying, where I don't know if you have heard this, but in the UK, supposedly the issue of homelessness was magically resolved for a while when there was an issue of other people contracting illnesses from the homeless. But apparently this situation will not be going on after the peril has been moved. So I think there is still a very strong tendency in the message sent that the lives of the least fortunate are only important when they are a threat to the better of us. I'm not sure how to put that. And a last remark is that I have heard a lot of discourses, and there are even graffiti here in Sweden about how medical workers and other normal people or people working in transport and so on are heroes. And I just wanted to point out how that may well be so, and it's a very nice thing to recognize that, but also we really shouldn't stop there, I think, because yeah, just labeling someone a hero doesn't relieve the situation in which they are. And people are underpaid, without without health insurance, and working for the corporations that are making the biggest money, as you have said. So thank you for allowing me the time.
No, this is
and thank you for the answer.
It's very important. I agree with you that in Italy there were a lot of claps every day for the doctors, for the nurses, but some some nurses said, "Okay, thank you for the claps, but we need also some." Not some. We are working for 1,000 euro a month. That is no. There is an issue about inequality in the world. Very, very strong. I think also what is going on in the US about Black Lives count, these leaves, this black reaction, strong reaction protest that is going on in US. I think is also something that is saying that inequality is too. There is a degree of inequality that cannot be sustainable anymore. We must take seriously this issue, because yes, it is an issue in the US related to black people, but it's not just black people. It's about, according to me, feeling of unfairness, feeling of there are people with more privilege than others, and so and so. Thank you, Anna. There is also a question from Eliska. I don't know, Bertalan, if you can read.
Exactly, Luigino, you were
in the chat, no?
Exactly.
Maybe if you can read it.
No, I asked Eliska herself to read it.
Ah, is here? Is in Zoom? Eh?
Yes.
Eliska. Hi everyone. I hope you're all well and safe. Okay, yeah. So the question was. So basically, with the whole crisis, everyone or all the borders of all the countries were shut for obviously the safety reasons, but it also affected the worldwide market. Now the question would be, with the after pandemic era, would be how to rebuild the worldwide market with all the interdependence, and also basically get ready for another crisis of maybe a larger scale, if there would be any, how to basically prevent or preserve single markets as well, not just the worldwide market. Is it possible, or is there any chance of doing this?
Yes, the first reaction of many countries with to close the borders, I think it was a very emotional, spontaneous, irrational reaction, such as in a family. When you have problems in your family, you first look after your children, and then the children of the others. It's something very instinctive, immediate. You have to think about our masks, not to then please don't sell the masks to the other country because we need masks, we need ventilators. Was something very, primitive, very emotional. But as in a family, in the long run, if you would like to really protect your children, you must cooperate with your neighbors. Otherwise, there is no way, because no family is independent, is self-sustained. You need the cooperation with the other families. This is also, we know from history, never the temptation of closing the borders was the right decision. History is very clear, but because it's always something very instinctive, is irrational, but is not the best solution. And then now, in fact, we are reopening again. No, there is a more positive feeling now in Europe to reopen borders, flights, because people understand that it's more intelligent, it's more human, it's more even economic, because the market doesn't work with closed borders. This is an old rule, no? And then I'm quite confident, because I'm optimistic towards human nature. Human beings are more intelligent than we think. We are able of doing, in particular, for instance, just in Italy, nobody believed before lockdown that Italians, in particular in the south, in Naples, were able to stay at home 2 months. Because we said, no, because we are so not compliant to rules by definition. No? We are totally creative. We invent many ways for not compliant. So, but why people? 95% were compliant in Italy. 95. Why? Because the government asked very much to people. And when people are asked for something important, they respond with more generosity. If you ask little, people give little. If you ask more, people give more. Then when we feel that something important was going on, people say, okay, this is something serious. There is no way. Then we must be more confident in the capabilities of human beings, because human beings are made in Trinity, are made of the image of God. As the Pope said when was coming from Africa, one journalist in the airplane asked him, "But are you scared? Are you preoccupied? Are you scared for terrorists?" He said, the Pope, "No, I'm more preoccupied. I'm more scared for mosquitoes, because terrorists are men, and men are made at the image of God." This is a very prophetic answer, no? And we must be very optimistic about people, because people are something beautiful in the universe, and we are able to do beautiful stuff when there are crises, when there are. I think just two consideration. First, after this crisis, we learned at least two things, two stuff. First, a more optimism about humanity. People are better than we think. We were in the world more compliant, more obedient than we thought before. Second, economy is less important than we think, because when life is at stake, economy becomes second, not first. And then everybody, in particular in some countries, but we stopped everything for 2 or 3 months, because life was more important than GDP. And that was considered impossible before the pandemic, because in particular in our time, GDP is the first totem of our societies, but we learned that GDP is important, but life more. And in particular, the life of elderly. That was very important, that everybody stopped for respecting, for saving elderly people. As I wrote in an article at the very beginning of the pandemic, that in Italy, but not only in Italy, in France, in Germany, in Hungary, in every country, in Poland, we have forgotten totally the Fourth Commandment: honor your father and your mother. No? Onora in italiano, onora il padre e la madre. Respect your father and your mother. Nobody remember this commandment, but immediately, suddenly, all together, we rediscover the Fourth Commandment. It was very strong because everybody stopped for saving the elderly people, because this pandemic was especially a pandemic for elderly people and for the weaker, for the fragile. No, that was a beautiful experience. Terrible and beautiful together at once. Some other question?
Thank you, Professor.
Yes, the floor is open.
For the strong and personal remarks as well. And now the next question comes from a special person, because she was a previous speaker in this panel. Réka Szemerkényi, she gave a presentation earlier on international relations, and now she's the one asking the next question. Réka.
Thank you, Bertalan. Thank you very much, and thank you, Luigino, for this fantastic starter. It's really thought-provoking, and I very much enjoyed your presentation. There are so much to think about that is really helpful for our own thinking. And of course, I'm coming from the international relations aspect, but I have a few questions that I really think are linking our thinking in one way or another, and that can be very helpful for me to my own field. For instance, what you said about the importance of relational goods, I think this is very, very thought-provoking, and something that can have a relevance on international relations as well. I wonder if you can see, what directions you are going to develop that, or what is the next step of how to bring that forward. Because what I have seen in my own field is that international relations, relational goods in international relations have been reevaluated, just as you say, in the economic field as well. What we have seen is that despite the difficulty which we first faced, there was an immediate, very positive reaction of reaching out to experts, starting, expert discussion on the most important issues. So we were dropping sort of issues which previously had been seen as priority for global, challenges. And we were focusing on some common challenges to humanity, which was really amazing. So that created a new level of discussion in my field as well, which was fantastic, because so on one hand, one positive impact in the relational good element was that we had, this ability to maintain the relations, and secondly, to expand our thinking together and deepen it, which I think was really very good. Where I was missing the very much sort of an ability or any tool was to expand relationships. So the typical kind of networking, when you go to a conference and you sort of bump into people and you start new relations, that of course is not possible through the Zoom or any other means. And so I think that underlines also, just as what you said, the in-person, the importance of the in-person meetings in a different way. But my second question would be, about how you're thinking about the public-private relationship, because that's also something that has relevant. The public-private balance of issues, because that's also has a direct impact on international relations, how we see the importance of the state, of political actors. And thirdly, I would like to ask you about the aftermath, because it seems like this is the biggest challenge now for all of us, that I hope, on the basis of the cooperation that we could build up throughout the crisis, we can maybe expand it. this is not a depression in the economic sphere. It's not a recession, because all our economies were working more or less healthily and fine. Some call it a suppression, because we actually physically were, I mean, literally, we're just suppressing the economic activities. But the burden on many sectors in the economy and many countries in particular, obviously, is so huge that it's going to be a problem. So I was wondering if you have any comment on this.
Yes. Thank you. Congratulations for your English, because listening to you, I feel very very poor in expressing in English. Thank you, Reka. Now, what I think these are relational goods in business. I think the problem when we mention relational goods in business, in particular before pandemic, was that we were considered a bit romantic. No, say, okay, these Focolarini or Christians, they like the smiling or the coffee break, this tiny stuff. But business is business, no. But there are this relational stuff going on. That is just for romantic people. But business is something very serious. It's not just this story about relationships or smiling or to be kind, nice, cute. So I think what we realized that was wrong, because relationships in life is almost everything, even in business. But what was I think about just the issue of the trust relationship in business. If before pandemic a company, a corporation has invested seriously in trust, in trusting the employees, not controlling everything, to not just using the monitoring for controlling everything was going on within the company, maybe to be scared about the use of Facebook during the working hours and so on. All this company now with lockdown, people were totally uncontrolled, totally, because they were at home. Then companies that have invested in trust, they now have a sort of asset with an immense economic value, because people are much more reciprocating than employees working before COVID in corporation without trust. That is relational goods, not the coffee or the smiling. Is the quality of relationships within company. Now I look John Mandel, that is the entrepreneur in a company, important company in America. I'm sure that if you spend energy, time in ordinary times in trusting employees, in maybe also risking, because any trust relationship is risky, because people can abuse of trust, because trust without abuse is not trust, it's another stuff, it's a commodity. No? Trust is by definition exposed to abuse. But if one person like John has invested for years trust relationships, now when people are at home without any control, this is a sort of asset, investment, stock, economic capital for the company. I think, no, just one example to say that relational goods are something that is at the center of the business, not just something peripheral or really not so important, but just for Focolarini or Catholic economists. No? Second, this idea of public-private, yes, I'm not saying that the supply of health must be the state. This is a technical issue. You can also have private actors, private institutions that can supply hospitals. But the health insurance must be universal, must be a public good. You cannot, according to me, after this pandemic, the idea that just healthy people can have the access to health system, I think is not anymore possible, because we saw the cost of that, the public cost of that. What I think, just to be more explicit, the idea that health is a private good. But what does it mean, the private good? That is something that is totally defined within the single person. After this pandemic, we realize that it's totally wrong, because the cost of people without health insurance is a public cost, because everybody, the whole community pays this cost. And then to imagine a universal access to health, this is a sort of public intelligence, not just a private issue. I think we must rethink the relationship between public and private after this, what is going on in America, what is going on in Brazil, not just a small country like Portugal, because Portugal, there is no interest at all. Ciao Yolanda for Portugal. No, in big countries, we know that is really evident, very shining, that health is a public good and not just a private good. No. And you ask also, yes, the economy. Now in Europe, there is the issue of how to pay, no? Because, as some friend of mine in Italy know, I wrote some articles saying we cannot continue to increase public debt. Because if you use debt, credit, for paying the cost of pandemic, you are moving the cost of the pandemic to the children, to the future. Because debt is to take some problem now and to move towards the future. That is debt. Then in Italy, that we are so huge public debt, if we continue to increase public debt for our problems of today, we are creating a burden with our children. And then I said that we have to use more the wealth that we already have in our country, and not just public debt. Because in Italy there are a lot of rich people, as in any countries. But today, politics has a huge difficulty to tax, to create a tax system where rich people pay taxes, because it's not popular. They don't get consensus. They don't get votes. They are not re-elected. But I think we cannot use just debt for pandemic. We have to use also taxation. This is unpopular. Is not very. There is no party in Italy that is endorsing this policy because they lose votes. We know that. But I'm not a politician. I'm free to say that, because debt is not enough for a huge pandemic cost. But thank you very much for this beautiful question. I think we are closer to the end. Probably we have to listen something about the economy of Francesco.
Indeed, that would be very nice.
Yes, and also, Luigino, if you could tell us something about the economy of communion and civil economy as well. What's the difference between these two things? Because
maybe we can organize another meeting on that. But I can try to say the economic communion. I would ask John Mandel to say 2 words. First, because he's American and his English is much better than mine. And second, because he lives the economic communion in practice, not just in theory, like me. Then, John, if you maybe 2 minutes would like to say something, thank you.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Unexpected, but that's okay. What is the economy of communion? The economy of communion is really a movement, an economic movement that is supported by activities in business, where we're trying to make the economic system more just and fair and sustainable. And we do that in communion with other businesses around the world and people. We use principles of not only working to create relationships inside the business where the business is focused on the human person, but also relationships with the local community and with the global community. And we're bridge builders. We're community networkers and fabric weavers. And we do this for the purposes of helping those that perhaps don't have as much, to be able to lift themselves up, either with in association with the businesses where we employ people who may not be as who may be looking for ways of overcoming their difficulties within the business, or in projects we support in the community to help those people, to help our economy become more just and fair. So my business, I'm one of 1,000+ businesses around the world that use our profits, not just for our sakes, but for the community, for helping those in need and for helping build a stronger community around our businesses. So that's not a very good Luigino's pregnant. Oh my gosh.
No, thank you. I like that people also listen to you. John is in Indianapolis, in now America, North America is a country that everybody cares for because it's at the center of many important phenomenon. Then it's important that you are here. You say something. Thank you, John. All our unity for what you are living there.
Yeah, thank you. Same here. And I appreciated all your comments related to public versus private, because we've learned many lessons in America this last 2 months, and not all the lessons have been good lessons. So,
thank you very much. I also profit this time to tell you something about the importance of this Dare to Care project that is starting now. Maybe some of you know that, because young people are very much committed now in the Focolare, but not only the Focolare, in this caring issue. Because one issue, one lessons from this crisis is about the importance of care. We knew that before, but we realized today that without that the importance of care at home, the importance of people working in care system. Think about nurses. And then care is the United World Project. They decided before the pandemic to focus on Dare to Care. But now after pandemic, this issue of caring is a very hot, very essential issue that is very important. And not being most of you young people, I think is important. And the economy of Francesco, I don't know, there are some of you here involved in the economy of Francesco, selected for the event. Maybe some of you are. Anna, maybe Anna.
I think Sila too is the Hungarian coordinator, as I know. Sila, where are you?
Probably it's too late. Maybe the jet lag in Hungary is the same than in Rome. Yes, okay, it's not so late. No, if some of you there in Hungary is working on the economy of Francesco, it would be nice to listen to you. Or maybe, otherwise I can say something, no problem. being a project of young people. Maybe Steve from Cameroon. Steve, are you coming to the economy, Francesco?
Yes, of course, of course. Hi to everybody. I'm sure the volume isn't the best. Can you get me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So as you mentioned, the economy of Francesco is really a very big event that's going to be on November, but it is not only in November, because since we have started with webinars, and especially all young people are really all encouraged to trying to think more about our economy, how to have a more just and fair economy. You know, that is the main point where we all are working and are focusing on. And it is a call by Pope Francis, really, for us to think twice for what we want for the economy tomorrow, caring of the environment, caring of the system, and for a better economy. So, of course, we will be together in November, Luigino. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Thank you. We are really looking forward to receiving you. There is a lot of more than 200 Africans coming for the event in Assisi. So everything will going on fine, because we are really. I can, if you are Christians or maybe believers in other religion, please pray for us, because it's not easy to organize such an event with this uncertainty about what will going on in November with the pandemic, because we don't know if Africa, which will be the situation in Africa, in India, in Brazil, even in Europe, because with the fall, probably this pandemic can also come again. Who knows that? Then, but we trust in the providence. We go ahead. Just not 2 words. As Steve was saying, in the website francescoeconomy.org, you will find our webinar. One of the next webinar, I think next Friday, 19. I will give. I personally, Luigino, I will give a small so-called crash course on School of Civil Happiness, about civil economy and public happiness. A short, because we are organizing a short course on civil economy with half an hour a week. Some professors, experts will present to everybody some ideas about civil economy, economy of communion, and other Franciscan economy, just to prepare a bit for the event, also from the ideas point of view. Of course, every webinar is free. You can link up to follow, to attend at the event. And then my last words about the economy of Francesco. When we started, I hope to express myself enough well for this delicate, this fragile experience. But when we went to Assisi in Italy to start our preparation, our procedure towards the economy of Francesco with the young people committee, the monk, the Franciscan people, monks, they brought us into the Basilica of Giotto, the Basilica of San Francis, painted by Giotto, this huge painter, Italian painter. As you may know, maybe some of you, the Basilica of San Francesco is the biggest church with original Middle Age frescoes in terms of meters of Then there are 28 fresco, 28 pictures about the life of St. Francis, from the beginning to the spoliation, to the very famous episode of the life of San Francesco. But the monk explaining us these paintings told me there is one missing episode of the life of Francesco. I said, which one? Told me, when Francesco kissed, the kiss of Francesco to the lepers, to the person with the leper, with the lebra. I don't know the English. John, which is the pronunciation? Leprosy. Then, because that was a very important episode in Francesco's story, but wasn't there. Why wasn't there? The monk told me, because the rich people it was financing the church, said we are not happy in saying to the world that in Assisi there are people with leprosy. Then the young people told me at the end of this meeting, we must show the 29 episode. We must show the people with the leprosy today. Then COVID is the way, one way of this 29 episode of Francesco. In an unexpected way, in a totally surprising way, but this 29th episode, the missing scene, the missing episode is has arrived in this. And then we are also ready as St. Francis to kiss, to embrace also this our people. Okay, Palco, can we finish? Bertalan is okay?
Yes. I want to thank you, all of you, Luigino.
It was really a communitarian experience. It was Steve from Cameroon, there was John from America, Yolanda from Portugal, a lot of people, our people in the world.
So. Because we do not want to organize a webinar simply, but a web dialogue. And I think it was a really good web dialogue on a high quality. And I have to thank Luigino, but all those who have put a question. Some years ago, you remember, Luigino, we organized living room conversations among us on the challenges our world with Sofia professors and so on. And
yes.
I really had a feeling now to extend this area of conversation among us, because, you know, I am very pleased to see that many friends of Economic Communion from all over the world learn now from the existence of this network, the
Yes.
network for Eastern Europe. We are connected, and this is a project, first of all, of empowerment for young people in these countries. We come from a tradition of the socialist culture, where all your microphones were muted for decades, and we now have microphones open, and we have to learn to express ourselves. To be ourselves, to communicate, to think together. And this is a great thing. Please support us. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Palco.
Thank you.
Go ahead together, eh? Dare to care.
Dare to care. That's
Great.
Ciao.
Thanks
Ciao.
to everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thanks, everyone.
Luigino.
Thank you, John. It was very nice to see you again after a lot of time. No, now
Same thing,
only 1
Luigino.
year.
We're still
We
there.
must meet again soon in person,
Yes.
as soon as we possible.
Take
Ciao,
care.
Steve. Bye,
Ciao, Steve.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Beth, Alan. Thank you, Sylvie. Thanks,
Ciao
Marco, for
Anna, ciao
organizing.
Anna.
Great.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bem fixe. Já acabou. Quem tá ali pra... Bem fixe. Eu vou para frente com isso, vais ver só. Vou avante com isto. Com a economia de Francisco. Depois tens que ver a qualidade do